Hello and welcome. This is Americans Learn. My name is Lauren, and today I am going to be looking at a Jon Solo video. I haven't watched any of him for the channel yet, but I have been watching him on the past couple of days on my own. He does a lot of like messed up origins, but a lot of it is comparison of like various books to movies and or plays and that kind of thing. So I've been really enjoying what I've seen from him so far there. But this one, it's folklore. It's about La Llorona. And I don't know a ton about her. I know that she's often called the Woman in White. I don't remember if it's Latin American, I think. I think it's like Mexican folklore, but I might be totally off on that. It might be just elsewhere. It might be all over Latin America. It might be from Spain. I'm not entirely certain. But the only other thing I kind of really remember about her is that the original, in the original story, I think she was a woman who she goes Medea on her kids. Like, that is what I kind of remember. She goes hardcore Medea on her children, and then she exits the mortal coil herself, and then she spends the rest of eternity like sobbing in the woods and like luring people to their deaths. In the show Supernatural, it's because it's cheating men, but I don't know if that is part of the original, because I feel like the early seasons of Supernatural did do a reasonable amount of research, and like the creatures that they came up with were actually pretty accurate to like the lore on them. They only started really changing things up in like season 4, when they started playing real fast and loose, especially with Christian mythology. But anyway, I'm not entirely certain. I am looking forward to discovering this and actually learning about, because again, it's been so long. I learned a little bit about her in Spanish class, but like that was so long ago. So let's find out what the actual lore of La Llorona is.
This episode is sponsored by Raycon wireless earbuds.
Oh my god. Startled me.
What is up, Solo Cups? My name is Jon Solo, and I'm coming at you with another episode of Messed Up Origins, the show where I take the myths and folktales you grew up with and tell you where they came from. This week, we're continuing on with the spoopy theme we started last week and covering one of the most infamous pieces of Latin American folklore that has ever existed, La Llorona, the Weeping Woman. Now, if you haven't heard of her, don't sweat it, because before I started researching for this episode, I really only knew her name and the fact that she had Spanish roots. But that second part's pretty much a given once you know her name. What I learned during my research, though, that's been burned into my brain forever, and the Latin Americans watching this would probably say the same thing, only for you folks, it's been since childhood. La Llorona is a ghost who's known for kidnapping and brutally murdering children who misbehave or wander away from their parents after dark.
Okay, so children. She kept going after children. I didn't realize that. Again, I think that's maybe where Supernatural got me. I saw that episode more recently than I went to Spanish class.
White gown, she roams the rivers and creeks, wailing into the night and searching for children to drag screaming to a watery grave. She is heartless, she is relentless, and if you're unlucky enough to hear her cries at night, you've been marked as her next victim, and she'll stop at nothing to steal your soul. But who is La Llorona really? Why does she go after children? And where does her story come from? Those are the questions that I'll be trying to answer today. However, before we get too far in, I've got an announcement. The official Solo Fam John Shot First merch is available again for a limited time over at bonfire.com.
Okay, this video was like multiple years, like 4 years ago, and it's a limited time, but I would still say go and check out some of his merch in the description below, because I feel like $34 for a sweatshirt's not bad.
So if you wanted to pick some up, now is definitely the time. Come on, we both know you're going to want an oversized hoodie or sweater to cuddle up in this winter season. What better way to get cozy than throw on some Solo Fam merch and listen to a messed up origin or two? And speaking of listening to a messed up origin, we should probably get started, right? As always, don't forget to punch that like button right in the face and subscribe to have more content like this delivered to your sub box every week. And now, without further ado, the messed up origins of La Llorona. Now, if you're a fan of ghost stories, then you're no doubt aware that behind almost every evil spirit or demonic presence is a tragic tale that explains how the spirit in question ended up being trapped on Earth, cursed to haunt humans forever. And La Llorona is no exception to this rule, so I think the best place for me to start breaking down her legend would be from the very beginning. Let's talk about La Llorona's life before she turned into an evil spirit that wants to kill your children. So according to myth, La Llorona was once a Hispanic woman named Maria who was as beautiful as she was vain. She was born into a very low status family, one might even call them peasants, but she always knew that she would escape that life by snagging herself a rich man. Throughout her youth and transition to adulthood, she had many suitors who tried to claim her heart, but Maria never gave them any attention until the day she met Armando. He was a wealthy, handsome rancher with a seemingly untamable wild side, and all the women wanted him. But Maria knew exactly how to stand out among the competition, by being the only one who didn't go after him. Being ignored by such a beautiful specimen drove...
She's like, alright, I'm gonna playing hard to get. It's better, you know? Not gonna lie, that does sometimes work. It does sometimes work. I mean, it's worked for me just making friends before. Like when I was a kid, like a freshman in high school, there was a guy who was, there was a crew that I was kind of interested in becoming friends with. But like one of the people he was a senior and I was a freshman. It was like one of those he didn't want anything to do with me really. But I really wanted to be friends with them and that crew because they were interested in the same things that I was interested in. And so at first I was a little try-hardy, you know, I said hi every single time I passed them in the hallway and like all of this. It was too much. It was too much. So I stopped acknowledging them entirely. And it did not take very, like I was still going to the same like after school meetings as them. I was still like clearly involved in the same space, but I stopped saying hi. I stopped acknowledging them basically at all. And it took about 2 weeks before I started getting the initial, hey Lauren, in the hallways. And then I sort of just became friends with them eventually, like throughout, like I acknowledged them back when they said hi to me, but like I just didn't say anything at first. I stopped initiating, and it did in fact work. And then I became friends with them. And then I was friends with them for a really long time, actually. I remained friends with several of the people in that crew. And that was a really long time ago, and I'm not going to tell you how long ago it was, because it was a really long time ago.
Drove Armando nuts, and he did everything in his power to get her attention, from singing her beautiful ballads to buying her lavish gifts. And when Maria felt the time was right and that she had him wrapped around her finger, she finally gave in. She went on a date with Armando, and soon enough, they were happily married. For a long time, life was great for Maria. She and Armando had 2 beautiful children, she lived in a nice house, and she really didn't want for anything. But you know the saying, all good things must come to an end. Over time, Armando paid less and less attention to his wife and would sometimes even leave home for months at a time to go do some crazy cowboy shit. And on the rare occasion he was home, he would only really pay attention to the kids. Rumors even started going around that he was going to marry another woman of a higher status. Now there's a few different versions of what goes down next, but just a warning, none of them are pretty. In one version, Maria and her children are walking along the river when she spots Armando with another woman on the other side. In another, he comes to visit his children with his new rich wife and doesn't even acknowledge Maria during the visit. Either way, Maria finds herself enraged at the man that she once loved, and to get back at him, she disposes of what he loves most in the world, his children. In the most common telling,
she goes all Medea on his ass.
Maria throws her children into the river and watches the current pull them under and carry them away, but soon enough realizes
just like being so like. And it seems like I think she regrets it, but like maybe they're about to say she regrets it, but like, can you just imagine like her just sitting there at the river, pushing the kids in and just watching the current take them away, just completely impassive, cold. That's so terrifying.
This is how horrible of a mistake she just made and tries to rescue them. She runs along the river, hopelessly reaching out for their little arms in a desperate attempt to save them, but they're pulled under and carried away right in front of her eyes. Refusing to believe they're gone though, she keeps running and keeps searching until she completely drains herself of energy and collapses dead on the ground. But there's another version that's even more intense, if you can believe it, where instead of tossing them in a fit of frustration, she holds them under the water until they drown. In that telling, Maria usually ends up up committing suicide out of regret, often by drowning herself in the river immediately after. Either way, Maria's body is found the next morning by some people in a nearby village, so they dress her in white and bury her before noon. But her story's not over yet, my friends, because that night, those same villagers heard a woman crying down by the river, my children, where are my children?" And when they went to investigate, they saw a woman wearing a white dress, just like Maria was buried in. But how could that be, you're probably wondering? If Maria was buried, then she couldn't possibly be walking around looking for her children. Well, according to legend, when Maria got to Heaven's Gates, they wouldn't let her in because she wasn't with her 2 children. So now she's doomed to wander the earth forever, trying to find them.
Okay, so they would have let her in if she was with the kids, regardless of the fact that she killed the kids? Did they let the kids in? Heaven, or alternatively, heaven was like, no, you can't come in because you don't have your kids. Like in a very Cain and Abel kind of thing, when God was like, hey, Cain, where's your brother? And Abel was like, oh no. He was like, Cain, where's your brother Abel? And Cain was like, I don't know. But actually he did know because he'd killed him. But like, it seems like the kind of thing that God sometimes does. Like little trolling behavior of the murderers. It's like, oh, you're here without your kids. That's weird. Where are they at? Once you bring them to me, then you can come in. How about that, babes? She's like, then now she's got to look for him forever. It feels like the kind of trolling that heaven does in some of the older stories. Just say, if that's the case. If they're going to let her in with the kids, that sucks. Fuck heaven for that. But like, anyway.
Joke's on her though, because her kids already were in heaven. She had actually gone to hell, and she was on punked. Okay, I may have made up that last detail, but that's what's so great about urban legends and folklore. They grow and change with every person who tells them, and I am definitely not the only person who's added to that story. Because while it started as Maria's ghost just crying real loud and looking for her kids, which by the way is how she got the name La Llorona, weeping woman, her spirit soon went from just creepy to deadly. Instead of just looking for her own children, she lures others away from their parents, and when she can get them alone, she drags them down to the river, kicking and screaming, and drowns them. Then,
I mean, like, if that's what heaven told her, like, when you come back, have your kids, she might be trying to bring her kids, but she doesn't really realize they're not hers.
And their soul be forced to live in the same spirit world as hers, along with all the other children she's killed during countless attempts to replace her own. And that's why, to this day, Hispanic parents tell their children La Llorona's story, not just to scare them, but as a warning. If you come back home too late, La Llorona might get you. If you wander away from me at any time, La Llorona might get you. If you don't eat your vegetables, you get the idea. Depending on
Also interesting because there are certain like wild animals who out in the wilderness who, when they scream, they do make these sounds that sound like screaming women or like crying women. So it's like, it could be like they hear a sound and they're trying to keep their kids away from wild animals who make these sounds that sound similar to people, which I don't know if that's true, but that could be like a reason why they like really, really, narrow down that, why they really like narrow that, like slam that home, like she's going to take you. She's a crying woman. She goes by the river, right where some of these wild animals would be at night, don't go to her. You have to stay close, stay inside. Like, makes sense. I think it makes sense.
Who you ask, though, La Llorona might have a different target. Sometimes she goes after adulterous husbands, other times after abusive parents. I know, kind of hypocritical, but we'll give her a pass because they're abusive parents.
That's fair, but also say, okay, so the husband thing, that's where Supernatural took it.
They deserve whatever happens to them. The one thing that remains consistent, though, is you do not want to hear the sound of her cries, because if you do, you're next.
Okay, so he's going to tell us...
So this is normally the part where I tell you where La Llorona's story comes from, the author responsible for her creation, or another tale that she was inspired by, but unfortunately, the records of this one's origins don't go back very far. I can tell you that her story originated in Mexico and has been traced back 500 years to the days of conquistadors, but that's really it. Now, with that being said, I still learned a lot about this story. For example, that La Llorona belongs to a category of ghosts called white ladies. No, not that kind. While their stories all differ when it comes to the details, white ladies are...
He got a picture of her on the phone. That's excellent. Good job. Good joke, Jon Solo.
Are female ghosts who wear white and are often seen in rural areas with local legends. Those legends usually consist of some kind of accidental death, a murder, or suicide, and there's often a theme of loss, betrayal by a husband or fiancé, or unrequited love. And these stories are found all over the world. For example, in the Republic of Malta, there's a legend about a woman who was about to be forced into an arranged marriage, but on her wedding day, she committed suicide by jumping off a balcony. To this day, she's known as the White Lady because she was wearing her wedding gown when she died, and she's said to haunt the Verdala Palace. Now, over in the Philippines, White Lady stories are especially common, but the most famous one by far is about a lady who died in a car accident on Bali Drive while wearing a white dress. Legend says that if you're driving down the road at night, you might see a beautiful woman asking for a ride, but when you let her in your car, her face will be covered in blood and bruises. Then, if that hasn't already terrified you enough to abandon your car completely, if you try to take her to her destination, she'll disappear into thin air before you even get there. There's actually a lot of stories about her that come out of the Philippines, so if you're interested, just Google it. Back to La Llorona though, believe it or not, there are other stories out there that are pretty similar to hers, only they're not so much ghost stories as they are Greek myths. There's one myth in particular that starts off just about the same way every other myth starts off.
With Zeus being a philandering butt munch. Let's see if that's where he's going.
With Zeus getting a boner. There's this Libyan queen called Lamia that he falls in love with and impregnates.
Oh, okay. Lamia. I definitely thought Lamia is how they said that. But maybe there's that. I wonder if Lamia is the same or something different as Lamia. I don't know.
A few times before Hera finally catches him, and when she does, the Queen of the Gods does not hold back. Depending on the version, Hera either killed Lamia's babies herself, or she transformed the adulterous wench into a monster and made her eat them. Then
that's so. Hera's honestly kind of the worst. Like, Zeus is really horrible. But Hera just always goes after the women and the like young people. And like that Zeus was, it's not their fault, Hera, it's not their fault. Also, they didn't know who it was most of the time. And then a huge percentage of the time, it was forced upon them. Like, Zeus is a monster, but Hera is just, she's awful. Like, I get that she's hurt, but then hurt Zeus. And like, I get that she's also kind of trying to like hurt Zeus by killing or hurting the things that he cares about more than her. But at the same time, I'm like, Hera, I don't want to say she's just as bad at Zeus because Zeus is truly awful, but she's also truly like, I feel like it's a scale like this. Like, his actions are really, really terrible. And hers are so pointed at the wrong person, so they're just also. Hera, stop it.
And when Lamia came to, saw what she'd become and what she had done, she was so horrified that she ripped out her own eyes.
Because she does that too with she did it with Hercules also, like or Heracles, sorry, because he was like, I'm gonna cheat and name it after my wife, she'll love that. And so like she made Heracles, like, she turned him crazy and made him kill his wife and kids. And then he was in trouble after that because he'd, killed his wife and kids. So then I think that's when he had to go on all of those adventures to like redeem himself or something. I was like, Hera!
But get this, because the remains of her dead children were the last thing she ever saw, Hera cursed her to always have that image in her head. Her only escape was a gift from Zeus, magic eyes that she could take out when she wanted to sleep. During the day though, that's when Lamia would go from city to city, devouring the children who wandered away from their parents. As you can see, not the exact same story, but a very similar format and outcome. That obviously doesn't mean they're connected, but I think it's so interesting how many different cultures around the world have come up with similar myths and archetypes. It says a lot about human nature and how deep down we all have a lot in common, despite what some people would like to think.
And again, I think that could also be because like you don't want your kids wandering around at night and they might hear something that sounds kind of innocuous or like it sounds like something they want to go and help, a woman sobbing. Maybe they can help, like, hey, are you okay? It's like, if your kid is a nice, good-hearted child, they might want to go and help that person. But like, it's never it's not a person. It's going to be a wild animal, or like it's a rushing river and like the kid's going to, you know, get caught in it and drown. So it's like you tell, like, it makes sense, like all across the world, like to keep your kids safe at night, don't go chasing after strange sounds. It's going to be make it a monster. I think it makes perfect sense.
Now, I've got one last story that might surprise you. Even if you hadn't heard La Llorona's story before you saw this video, you may have heard her name without even realizing it, if you saw the movie Coco. Toward the end of the movie, Imelda Rivera sings a famous folk song about La Llorona during the Sunrise Festival while trying to avoid Ernesto. Similar to the legend, no one actually knows who wrote that song, but it was popularized back in 1941 by Andre Henestrosa. The lyrics are long and very repetitive, so I'm not going to bother going through them, but there's a popular interpretation that makes the song a parallel to the horror story. The theory goes that the singer is feeling trapped in a relationship by a weeping woman, La Llorona, because every time he tries to leave her, she cries, and he pities her so much that he stays. The suffering the singer goes through from being trapped in the relationship is said to parallel the suffering that the woman in the legend goes through from having her husband leave her. However, I have a different theory. I say the song is the La Llorona story from the husband's perspective. Maybe before he cheated, he tried to leave her multiple times, but because she would always go into hysterics, he found that his best chance of escape was just to run off and cut her out of his life completely. That's why when he went back to visit his kids, he wouldn't even acknowledge her existence, because if he did, he would feel so guilty that he would get back with her. Again, just a theory, but not a bad one if I do say so myself, especially considering that I don't even speak the language that the song was written in. But now the time has come, Solo fam, we have to put La Llorona in her place among the rankings of the most messed up folklore we've ever covered.
Okay, so it looks like he's had a lot of stuff. Ooh, Shrek's in there. Anyway, let me know if you wanted me to watch more of these for the channel. I think that this is interesting, and I really, really like folklore. I like to learn about all of these different... I would love to learn about all these different things. This looks interesting to me. All of these look good.
Believe it or not, this one wasn't too hard. I mean, a story about a woman who catches her husband cheating, drowns her children for revenge, drowns herself out of regret, then walks the earth murdering other people's children and harvesting their souls? I've got no choice but to say F tier.
Dang. All right. Also, I feel like I remember seeing the commercials for that movie, the one that he keeps using, like the clips from that movie. I feel like I remember seeing the commercials for it. Never saw the
Just
movie,
kidding, it's an S tier. I got you, I got you, I know I got you.
You did, but only because I don't understand your ranking system yet, because I've never seen it before. So I was thinking F tier, like, because it's so horrible. Not S tier because it's such a good tale. I was thinking F tier because she did some really messed up stuff.
Actually look a little sick. Should I call the nurse? Okay, I'm gonna do that, and while I'm on the phone, you can just listen to a word from our sponsor. I'll let you in on a little secret, Solo fam. Do you know why people throughout history would come together and tell each other such crazy stories? Because they hadn't figured out the science behind making high-quality wireless earbuds at an affordable price.
Is that it?
Lucky for us living in 2020, though, there's Raycon, a company founded by Ray J for that exact purpose. Not only do their earbuds start at about half the...
This is the first time that I have heard the name of the founder of Raycon. I have seen so many YouTubers talk about Raycon. No one's ever mentioned Ray J. Hi, Ray J. Thank you, John, for showing me what he looks like.
Price of any other premium brand on the market, they sound just as great, if not more so. For me personally, their newest model, the Everyday E25 earbuds, are their best ones yet, with 6 hours of playtime, a charging case that stores 4 additional charges, seamless Bluetooth pairing, and more bass. They also have a more compact design that gives you the noise isolating fit you love, which in my experience is so useful when I'm trying to focus on work or get a lift in. Not to mention that because there's no dangling wires or stems, there is way less risk of them falling out and you potentially losing them forever. The E25s are also available in a variety of cool colors, so you can coordinate the ones you buy with your wardrobe, or in my experience, my soul. Like I said, Raycons are half the price of competing brands, but that's not all, because if you go to buyraycon.com/solo, you'll get an additional 15% off. Combine that with their free 45-day return policy, and there's really no reason not to at least try them. Again, just go to buyraycon.com/solo to get yourself a pair for 15% off. Alright, thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Thanks.
The hospital.
He's dead. Solo Cups, that will do it for today's episode of Messed Up Origins. Thank you all for watching. If you haven't yet, make sure you hit that like button or I will cry on camera and make everyone here very uncomfortable. And subscribe if you don't want to be cursed with Cheeto fingers for the rest of your life. What? trying to be spoopy. It's Halloween season. Also, don't forget to follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram because I really hate all this self-promo stuff, but I kind of have to do it. Oh, and if you want to be updated on when new videos are coming out, what they're going to be covering, or just send me a suggestion for a future episode, that's the best place to do it, by far. And to balance...
The best place for you to do that here is either on the community tab, or under videos, but like really more recent videos I'm more likely to see those suggestions. But yeah, community tab will do it. Or if you want to support the channel by becoming a member, I will see members only comments as well. And no matter what the video they go under, the newest comments by members show up in a separate tab as well. So you can be a member for as little as $2 a month. And you get some extra content. You'll get some early content as well as, again, a slightly easier way of connecting with us here. So that's that.
Balance out the ugly that I bring to your timeline, follow this demon I found in my apartment. I'll admit, he's a lot friendlier than Jerry, my personal demon. All Gunther really does is sleep and fart, but he is a menace in his own way. I'll see you all again next Friday with even more messed up content coming down the pipeline. Okay. Until then, my name is Jon Solo, and remember, Jon shot first.
Okay, sure. Anyway, that was interesting. That was, I learned a lot, I think, way more than I thought I was going to learn. I vaguely remember, okay, so when I was a kid, right, I had a lot of the American Girl doll books, and I had Josefina. She was my American Girl doll. And I had all of her books, but they also sold these, like, coffee table books essentially about each of the dolls, and like, but it was not just about the dolls, it was about this is how the actual people of this town that they would have lived in would have lived. It had lots of stuff about history. It had like archaeological finds. It had things that were like, hey, this is what their church looked like. You know, this is the thing they used to cook. This is like what their like a family meal would have been, like that kind of thing. It had all of this like real historical information in it. And it did have, I remember this book had the La Llorona story in it. And I remember like there was like it was beautiful artwork. And like, I do recall sometimes they had this spooky story, which I think is kind of cool. So anyway, I do remember that was, because again, like I said, Josefina was my American Girl doll. So that was like one of the very first, like, experiences I had with Latin American culture, and like stories and history and all of that, because that was the doll I had. And so some of these things came with the doll when you bought it, or like, at least I got it with the doll when my mom gave it to me for my birthday or whatever I got it for. It was, so yeah. So Josefina was always my favorite, just because she was mine. But I do kind of remember some of those coffee table. I have to go find those. Next time I see my family. Next time I go home to see my family, I might see if they still have those anywhere, because those were actually really useful. There was a lot of really cool information in them. I remember they would have like a giant spread of like what a house would look like, and then they would pull out little little historical anecdotes and about real people who lived in houses like that. Be like, and hey, and this is where so and so would have done this, like this real historical person. Which anyway, irrelevant. It was cool. I really enjoyed that, and I enjoyed learning from Jon about La Llorona, reminding me of things that I used to know. So thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I will see you all in the next one.